Graffiti. For some, it's an eyesore, but for others, it's an eye-catching expression of art.
You can see it as a positive thing.
Should street art be allowed to exist? That issue coming up on Equal Time.
From San Jose State University, you're watching Equal Time, exploring new issues each week, giving equal time to competing points of view.
Hello from the campus of San Jose State University, and welcome to this edition of Equal Time. I'm your host, Journalism School Director Bob Rucker. Here today and perhaps gone tomorrow, graffiti's impact on a surface can be fleeting, but it's a modern movement that can be traced back to the 60s and 70s, even the 80s. As Sarah Kyo reports, graffiti has widespread appeal in today's culture.
Adrian Avila first considered himself an artist when he was 7 years old. At the age of 9, he became involved with graffiti.
Without parent supervision and my mom working 12-hour days, being the only child, no one at home, so it's pretty much summers were great freedom for me. And you know, walls under bridges, creeks were kind of like just unlimited canvases that I didn't have to pay for, and you know, no one would bother me. I started off with, you know, letters and experimenting with color and things like that, but I wasn't really really pushing it. It was kind of more of just trying to get out there and trying to get my name out.
Today, Avila gets his name out, not with graffiti tags, but with his design and printing business called After Dark Prints. The business is housed in Silicon Valley Debug, a media and community organizing collective in San Jose. He no longer does graffiti illegally, but he often uses the style as part of his artwork. His works include the Inspire One mural in San Jose's Gardner neighborhood. Avila says he was inspired to create the mural when he noticed art, advertisements, and architecture aimed toward adults instead of kids.
The complaints usually come towards youth. You know, it's, oh, you know, you guys are doing graffiti, you guys are skating, you guys are vandalizing, you guys are stealing, drinking, doing all these bad things. But then you just notice it's like, well, they're kind of set up for that. You know, there's no real place for them to hang out, you know, after 7 or 8 or 9, which is very crucial for a young person to kind of have that social life in them. And then, you know, they're also artists. They like to color and paint on everything.
Aiming the message toward children, Avila used big graffiti-style lettering to convey the word inspire.
Big burner letters, big enough to where you can see them from, you know, 200 feet away.
Sammy Rodriguez partnered with Avila to work on the mural. Rodriguez, who also used to do graffiti illegally, served as a mentor to a teenage Avila by introducing him to Debug. Rodriguez is a designer for his business and the San Jose shop KQED Clothing and Art Gallery. KQED features urban clothing and art, including graffiti-inspired designs.
For the most part, graffiti is pretty abstract. It's a bunch of geometric, you know, shapes jumbled together. What you're really doing is you're just getting typography, you know, Roman alphabet, and you're just exaggerating it. You're taking each letter and you're stretching it out. It's like if the letter was a piece of dough and you were just stretching out the ends.
Drawings on surfaces have been around since the days of cavemen. But the modern graffiti movement, with works like this, have been around since the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines graffiti as unauthorized writing or drawing on a public surface. But it can also describe an artistic style used in legal artwork. Avila won grant money to work with community leaders and members on the Inspire One mural.
It really woke my eyes into how people see public art and how you can see it as a positive thing, and you can go into saying, hey, let's go beautify this neighborhood, and you can be met with hostility and kind of, you know, questioning, like, you know, who are you to come into my neighborhood and tell me what art is and put it up on my walls.
While both artists say the mural received mostly positive feedback, it also received a few negative reviews for its graffiti style.
Really, to me, like, all it is when you look at graffiti is it's just shapes, colors, and lines, you know, and that's it. So I don't To me, I just think that there's always going to be people out there that have their prejudice.
A graffiti style is sometimes employed in public art projects, such as these murals in San Francisco's Mission District. They were commissioned by the nonprofit Precita Eyes. This genre caught the eye of San Francisco resident Steve Rotman, who started taking photos of street art in 2004. An interest in murals and graffiti murals turned into a passion for graffiti itself. Rotman has taken hundreds of graffiti photos. Many are displayed on his Flickr account under the username Funk and Jazz.
If all you're doing is allowing graffiti artists to do their work legally and being paid for it, that's not the kind of graffiti that originally attracted me to the art form. What makes graffiti vital and interesting to me is the very fact that it is illegal. And so there's a kind of tension between those two things, that you've got people creating some really fabulous art, but doing it at risk and doing it illegally, that makes graffiti a very interesting and often very exciting medium.
Rotman says he sees art in all types of graffiti, including tags, the signatures of graffiti writers.
That's usually the most vilified kind of graffiti and the kind of graffiti that most people hate. What I learned in my many years of photographing graffiti is that tags are also very artistic and a very interesting form of kind of urban calligraphy.
Rotman is the author of 2 books, San Francisco Graffiti and Bay Area Graffiti, and defends the reputation of the artists.
None of them, as far as I could tell, had any relationship to gangs at all. Most of the guys that I interviewed who are involved with graffiti do graffiti because they love art or they love doing graffiti. Now, and when I say they love doing graffiti, I mean they love the physical act of going out and taking a spray can and doing a tag or doing a piece or doing a throw up. Those are various terms for kinds of graffiti. They like the thrill of it. They also like the artistic expression element of it.
Not everyone approves of this art form. Some people even combat graffiti by doing graffiti themselves. That's the premise of a recent documentary, Vigilante Vigilante, which follows individuals who paint over graffiti, sometimes with non-matching colors. Director Max Good says his film tries to challenge people's thoughts and opinions about graffiti.
You can see graffiti as a decay or as an attack on society, but in other ways you could also see it as a contribution. You can even see it as sort of like a regeneration in a neighborhood, that people are caring enough to express themselves. So it really depends on your outlook. I think in some cities where there's a lot of graffiti, it means that it's a cool place to live. There's good culture and young people are moving there and there's a vibrant community. It doesn't mean that it's dangerous or that people don't care about their community.
Good, who is an Oakland resident, began doing graffiti when he was 15 and continues to do it to communicate political messages. He views graffiti as a form of self-expression.
I'd rather see the personal expression of individuals than just blank walls and corporate advertising and really usually quite boring architecture. So I think graffiti is sort of a democratic art form where it lets everybody participate and have a voice.
When we come back, we'll give you the other side.
You don't get to go to other people's property and decide, what fashion you think it should be in.
We'll look at the actions of city government and community members to clean up what graffiti writers left behind when Equal Time returns. Welcome back. We've seen how graffiti is considered art in some sectors of society. But painting without permission, well, that can be costly and have consequences, both for the tagger and for those left with the tags. Equal Time Sarah Keogh shows us the economic and social reasons for graffiti abatement efforts in San Jose.
Families and couples, college students and artists make their home in downtown San Jose's Nagley Park. Victorians, craftsmen, and other historic houses make up much of the area east of San Jose State University. For resident Carolyn Lockhart, there are blemishes on this beautiful day in her neighborhood, and she's taking matters into her own hands. Lockhart organized 25 volunteers to clean up graffiti in September 2011. She has lived here for 7 years and seen an increase in the number of tags.
It was about 2 years ago that I woke up one morning and there was a tag in front of my house. And that led me to suddenly look around the neighborhood and notice that there were tags all over people's front walks, all over the signs, all over the streets.
Lockhart talked to San Jose's anti-graffiti and anti-litter program. She was told that graffiti needed to be removed as soon as possible to discourage more tags. In addition to reporting graffiti, people can visit the program to pick up free kits for eradicating it themselves. This is where Marian Salas picks up free cleaning solvent to add to her graffiti removing arsenal.
The solvent doesn't get it off, then you have your various...
The trunk of Salas's car contains solvent, rags, gloves, and different shades of spray paint.
Graffiti is in my life every day. I don't paint every day, but I'm hauling it in my car and I'm looking for it.
Salas finds graffiti on traffic signals, signs, electrical boxes, newspaper stands, and garbage cans.
Actually, one thing that I've noticed a lot more of lately that's a new thing that's like that is tagging on the cement, on the sidewalk and the gutters and streets and stuff. And actually, I have to, kind of ramp up my efforts to figure out how to remove that because that's a lot more difficult to remove.
She says the fence at her workplace, engineering company Salas O'Brien, is a popular target. Salas removed this tag from the fence. You can still see some specks of red paint against the blue fence. Salas has lived in Nagley Park for almost 30 years. She's a part owner of some nearby properties. She has noticed a connection between graffiti and the economy.
When the economy goes bad, all the crime around here goes up, like break-ins are more prevalent, cars being vandalized, unfortunately sometimes apartments get broken into, it doesn't happen very often, and graffiti. So all those things, when the economy's better, I see those things all abate.
Salas abates graffiti because she believes a clean, well-kept neighborhood lessens the likelihood of crimes. She has a response for people who say the tags are positive contributions to the community.
Am I allowed to swear on the... No, that's bull. I mean, I could use that same argument and say, okay, well, there's your bike, so I think I'll, splash acid on it, or I think your bike looks so much cooler out in the community if the paint's been scraped off of it. It's just, you don't get to do that. You don't get to go to other people's property and decide, what fashion you think it should be in.
Both Salas and Lockhart say most of the tags are ugly and offensive.
Of course, I've seen in person, beautiful murals that are graffiti style, but that's not what we're seeing around the neighborhood. And quite frankly, I don't want to be forced to see any of it anywhere.
Salas and Lockhart voluntarily clean up graffiti. Meanwhile, the city of San Jose is changing how it handles graffiti complaints. Facing a budget deficit, the city of San Jose outsourced its graffiti abatement efforts in June 2011 to a private contractor, Graffiti Protective Coatings. This move saved the city $1 million, but it cost 15 city employees their jobs. Even San Jose City Hall is vulnerable to graffiti. These city employees did not want to be interviewed on camera, But one said they power wash and scrub tags off City Hall regularly. According to a January 2011 survey, San Jose saw a 38% increase from last year in documented tags. One of the areas that saw an increase in tags is District 5, East San Jose. Its city council member, Javier Campos, is concerned with how fast graffiti is being removed.
We will be having a report on, a 6-month report on how effective or how well this new contractor is doing. Then the council will be able to weigh in on, on the results of the report.
Council member Ash Kalra, who represents District 2, as far south as Coyote Valley, says while some of San Jose's tags are related to gang activity, the increase in graffiti can be attributed to the bad economy and a need for youth programs.
These are our kids, and we have to treat them like our children. In that, when they do something that's wrong, we have to make sure that they're punished for it. But we also have to make sure that we help them grow through that experience.
The punishment for graffiti can include fines, community service, and jail time. In 2009, San Jose police arrested Stephen Free, known as Giraffa. Over the years, the prolific graffiti writer left his giraffe mark throughout the Bay Area. The judge ordered 3 years probation and a $38,000 fine. And when his graffiti got him in trouble with the law, San Jose designer Adrian Avila says it was a major turning point in his life.
I got caught in possession of photos of something that I had done. So I wasn't actually arrested. I was given a citation, and I had to do community service hours and pay, a couple things that I had done. But ever since that day, I said, you know what, this is not worth it.
But he says similar punishments may not deter other young people from illegal activity. He says there is more that San Jose can do to reach its youth.
You don't have an outlet for that, and if you don't have an outlet for that, then you're going to go to the next best thing and say, well, if I could just write my name on this wall and no one's going to do anything about it, and besides give me some hours or take my money, then I'm going to keep doing this because there's no other outlet for me.
Council member Kalra says everyone should be concerned with graffiti and the reasons behind it.
It's easy to say, well, that's not my child, but you know what? When the graffiti goes up on our wall, it's our problem as well, because we can penalize that child, we can stop that child from doing graffiti, we can lock them up, whatever the consequence might be. But the next kid will come along and be involved in the same behavior if we don't really see this as a more global issue.
We'll sit down with a panel of experts and our student reporter when Equal Time returns. Continue. Welcome back to this edition of Equal Time. I'm Bob Rucker, along with Sarah Keogh, the reporter on today's story. Our focus is graffiti. Let's meet our guests.
Escape Martinez, artist, writer, educator.
Joey Reyes, programs assistant, MACLA, the Latino Center for the Arts.
Ash Kalra, San Jose City Council member, representing District 2 in South San Jose.
Carolyn Lockhart, professional musician in San Jose.
We thank you all for being here today. Let's get to it. I was saying before the program that historically I grew up in an urban area where it was an expression during the Vietnam War era to use graffiti to get out a message, to stir people up. Some people didn't like that. They thought it caused problems for society. Escape, this is your area. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think those elements still hold true, but graffiti in 2011 is just such a large movement with so many different practitioners who've been doing it for upwards to 30 or 40 years now, and it covers so many different social strata that you can't just use one idea or one idiom to talk about the whole segment. You know, I mean, you've got people like myself who've been doing it for well over 20 years, you know, who frequently goes into classrooms and lectures and stuff, and you've got other people who are on the opposite side of that. So you just have a lot of different entities and a lot of different movements within this movement. So some of that holds true, but it's not 100%.
Now, Carolyn, how does that react to you?
Well, the only issue I really have about graffiti is where you do it. Where do you do your graffiti?
I do my graffiti primarily in my studio.
Okay.
But in the past, I mean, you know, I did it like everyone else did. You know, it was my form of getting my message out. It was my way to let the world know that I was alive. So, you know, I did my unsolicited public artwork as well. So, but yeah, I do it primarily in my studio now.
Let me bring in Ash. As a councilman here in San Jose, you look at it from a different perspective. It's a cost factor for the city to try to deal with this issue.
Well, there's definitely a cost. You know, the residents ask us as their representatives to get rid of the graffiti. They don't like it there. And I think that in kind of the micro view of it in the neighborhoods, we certainly have to do what we can to eliminate graffiti, eliminate the blight. I mean, I think there is a distinction between graffiti art and some of the tagging that happens, and some of which is gang related, but not all of it, certainly. There's certainly tagging crews and so on, and it has to be responded to right away. Otherwise, it multiplies very quickly. And I think the flip side of that is a broader, kind of more long-term view. As a representatives, we have to find ways of reaching out to the people that are doing graffiti so that we can find opportunities for them. Because I don't believe the answer is simply just locking people up or you know, having them be convicted of misdemeanors or even felonies now is actually only $400 of damage. It's a felony. I don't think that's the answer either. I think that if we really want to deal with this issue, both from the residents' perspective as well as from the artist's perspective, we have to find a way of channeling what's happening out in the street in a positive way.
And I think that speaks to Joey. Joey, you are a person who tagged or has done graffiti, but there's an educational element that we're missing. What is it?
I think, you know, speaking from my experience being with Makla, coming also from my background, having that street background, you know, I am also a professional artist, so I understand the, you know, intrinsic value in that language itself. I think what we are doing at Makla is we're trying to get the youth when they're younger. We're trying to also offer them alternatives. I think if you have the place to actually realize your voice, and I think it's really the youth are trying to find their voice, and sometimes it may be done in a manner that is illegal. And I think if we offer those options, because you know, we all know here that, you know, once the economy is bad, the first thing to go are programs for youth. And so if we as an arts organization, as an arts center, can offer those alternatives, like we have a program called Peapod Adobe Youth Voices Academy at Makla that we just opened, that's in collaboration with Adobe and the Peapod Black Eyed Peas. And so what we're doing is it's a full-scale digital media facility for youth, and it's for local youth to come in and, you know, build their voice. They're not only learning the technical aspects of video production, music production, but they're also learning, you know, to kind of, and I guess build a language themselves to kind of understand that there's issues here that they can explore through those media.
Sarah, when you were doing this report, what did you experience when you were out there talking to people about this?
I experienced that there's lots of different points of views and opinions on this issue, and not just there's a pro side or a con side, but even on the same so-called side, there's different opinions, whether it's people who've done it before, graffiti I mean, in the past, and they don't do it anymore illegally, and they don't approve of it in that way, but they still use that as their artistic style, and then there's other people who appreciate the more illegal aspects of it.
Now, you and I both know the public looks at this and says, why are they glorifying graffiti? It's a problem, we need to get rid of it, or it's an artistic expression, it belongs in the classroom. Help me with this, Caroline. Well, when people say that, you help organize people to do something about it.
I do. Actually, as we're sitting here, I'm wondering if it would make a difference. I know that in some cities there are places where it's legal to tag or draw or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that would, do you, in your opinions, from what you've seen, would that make any difference if there was a legal place to go?
That says that ultimately I think graffiti artists should get paid for what they do. That's the side that I'm on. I think that there should be space, that could be like, free wall space, let's say, for people to go out and create their artwork. And that can be done in all manners of speak. But I also think that one of the things about graffiti art is that it's very primal to all of us. Even, it's like I always tell folks that, like Pablo Picasso has the famous saying that we're all born artists. It's a trick to try to stay that way when we grow up. I believe that we're all born graffiti artists. The issue is trying to maintain that as you grow up, because it's part of our nature to mark our territory. It's part of our nature when we're little to get your mom's lipstick and mark on the wall, to create something to say that I am here. And all that we're doing is we're taking that energy and we're using different mediums, we're extrapolating on it, we're growing it, we're communicating on a grander level. The issue always just comes down as to where does it end up going.
My mom and dad used to complain about that and say, we have to watch that down, it costs us money.
That's the issue.
And just like you said when you were little, I mean, at some point we need to grow up and not deface
But the question is, how do you define growing up? Because does growing up means I'm going to give up my creativity, I'm going to give up my voice, or I'm going to latch onto this thing and ride it like lightning? And that's what I think that a lot of us who've been doing it for a long time have done. We've transformed, we've grown, we've changed with the times, but we're still keeping our message true. I mean, I'm not an advocate to say, like when I go to a school, I make it very clear that if I'm going to talk about the creative points of view, the style aspects of graffiti art, I'm not telling Johnny to go tag a bathroom. Because even when I was active in the street, tagging wasn't something that I was a big fan of. Because our running joke was with the tagging crews, and no disrespect to any tagging crew out there, but it was like, we can do that, but can they do this? And we always pushed the art aspect. And when you look at practitioners who've been doing it for a long time, that's where their head is at. And there's always been this conflict between piecers and people who are, bus hopping, or people who are just tagging. And you do have the gang element. And I think that we can have that common consensus that the gang element is, the flea on the graffiti dog, let's say.
Well, I think that's what lawmakers are probably concerned about. How do you deal with that? And will your colleagues in City Hall listen to this and understand what he's saying, or they listen more to what the public is telling you?
Well, we have to understand that even those that are part of the graffiti culture are part of our community as well. And so it's not one or the other. However, the reality is that there is a cost. There's a real cost to having graffiti in the community, to cleaning it up. And frankly, thanks to Carol and in my district as well, there are hundreds of volunteers that come out throughout the city, taking their own time, using city resources like materials and paint to cover up graffiti.
And we have to be aware of that. There are more than one side of this issue, and it's not going away, but I thank you all for your points of view today. It was very helpful. We hope you'll stay in touch with Equal Time, of course, on Facebook, and come back for another edition of Equal Time.